This hour of the Costa Report is brought to you by IBM. Big data at the speed of business.
Welcome to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and thank you for joining me for another 2 hours of Straight Talk Radio. I want to take a moment to extend a special welcome to members of our armed forces who are joining us over the internet, and also to the executive staff at Walmart Corporation in Bentonville for hosting my visit there last week. Thank you for your warm hospitality. In just a moment, the first African-American female to be elected to the United States Senate, Ms. Carol Moseley Braun, will be joining us. She calls herself a recovering politician, and in the next hour, we're going to find out about life after breaking a historic race and gender barrier. But before Ms. Braun joins the program today, let me tell you a little about her background. Carol Elizabeth Moseley was born in Chicago, Illinois, to a father who was a police officer and mother who was a hospital medical technician. Moseley was an exceptional student, earning her undergraduate degree from the University of Illinois and her law degree from the University of Chicago School of Law. She landed her first job as an assistant in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago through 1977, when she turned her attention to becoming a representative in the Illinois House of Representatives, a position she served until 87. During her tenure, she was known for working on education, government, and healthcare reform, and rose to the post of Assistant Majority Leader. In 88, Braun assumed the role of Cook County Recorder of Deeds, allowing her to oversee hundreds of employees and manage the agency's multi-million-dollar budget. Then in 91, Moseley threw her hat in the ring for Senator of Illinois, and against all odds, she prevailed, catapulting her to become the first African-American woman to win election to the United States Senate. But if her colleagues were expecting Moseley to blindly vote along party lines, they were in for a big surprise. This was a woman who was used to thinking for herself. She voted in favor of the Common Sense Product Liability Act, the Balanced Budget Amendment, the Freedom to Farm Act, the Telecommunications Act, and in favor of a nuclear waste repository in Nevada, all in spite of her staunch liberal track record on social policy issues. She served on the Finance Committee, the Small Business Committee, the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee, and authored the Education Infrastructure Act, aimed at channeling funds to underfunded schools in low-income neighborhoods. After retiring from the Senate in 99, Moseley was appointed ambassador to New Zealand and Samoa by President Clinton. When the assignment ended in 2001, she began teaching and pursuing one of her great passions, pushing the frontiers of sustainable farming, something we're going to hear a lot more about later in the program. It's my pleasure to welcome to the Costa Report a leader who's been forging new ground wherever she goes, Miss Carol Moseley Braun. Thank you for joining us today, Ms. Braun.
Well, thank you so much. That was about the best introduction I think I've ever heard, and I'd like to copy it if I can. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction.
Well, thank you for making time to be with us today. Now, earlier I mentioned that you call yourself a recovering politician, so I have to ask you whether you're recovering from blazing new trails as the first black female senator, or is it just politics in general?
Well, it's electoral politics. Obviously, I stay concerned about community and engaged in my own way in the issues, but I'm not involved with the electoral, horse racing that's going on and getting involved in campaigns per se anymore. It's kind of difficult, but at the same time, there's so much that needs to be done. And I'm involved. I'm on the board of a homeless shelter, for example, and I'm involved with the National Organization for Women, and so I keep my fingers in the community pot, if you will, but I'm not involved in electoral politics anymore.
And you sound happy about that.
Do I? Yes,
you do. You sound like you're very happy living this life and helping in the community.
Well, I tell people I'm on my fourth career. All right, I've been a lawyer, I've been an elected official, I've been a diplomat, and now I'm an entrepreneur. And I'm learning every day, and I think that, frankly, that's the real challenge, to keep the gray cells, that Poirot calls them, to keep the little gray cells working and learning. And I'm learning a lot as an entrepreneur. I'm actually having a chance to witness firsthand the result of some of the policy that I even helped make back when I was a legislator. And I'm in a place that I'm just passionate about. which is sustainability and sustainable agriculture. So this allows me an opportunity to not only learn, but also to engage a conversation about sustainable agriculture, about nutrition, about how we deal with permaculture and our planet in a way, and climate change. I get to be involved with all of those issues in a new way, and it's just a lot of fun. So
now, in just a moment, we're going to be diving into your passion for biodynamic farming. But before we do that, let me ask you one more question about breaking the race and gender barrier, because that was historic. And but despite that historic achievement, there still seems to be very little diversity in government. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, you look to the money. It's always, I mean, particularly now. I was in government at a time before the Citizens United decision, allowing corporations to engage in political donations and fundraising. And it was bad then. It's worse now. And it really is about money. And the money it becomes really a hurdle for people of color, for women, for people of different ethnicities and different religions. It becomes a very difficult, a very high hurdle to overcome. And
why is that? Why is that more of a hurdle for a person of color?
Well, think about it. I mean, most of the wealth in this country and the corporate leadership in this country is not held by African Americans. I mean, the numbers tell us that of the CEOs, I think African Americans in this country are about 1% of the CEOs of any company. And so we're talking about an economic imbalance that has historic roots, of course, and that economic balance then perpetuates itself by giving a financial edge to people who come out of majority communities, as opposed to people of color and women and other groups that are less mainstream.
Right. I used to be of that same thinking, but I was so impressed with how President Obama raised funds over the internet in small contributions by getting people to not only participate, right, and get engaged in his election, but also the raising of the money part. With the internet these days, is it possible to use the internet to equalize that?
Well, you know what? That's actually being tested out, and I suspect, if not equalized, it certainly can help to provide balance. Everything from the the Kickstarter type fundraising that's available on the private sector side. I mean, I must get 22 emails a day from people who are using the internet to reach me and ask for money. I know, and again, President Obama, frankly, enjoyed what in the business we call a first mover advantage. That is to say, nobody else had done it that way. When he ran for the presidency, internet fundraising was brand new, and the capability, the capacity to do it had not yet been developed. Well, he was able to get out in front of that particular curve, and now, there are a lot of people who do it, but again, you still have to have the resources, the money on the front end to, if you will, hire the talent and to pass the money primary, and that's always a stumbling block for women and people of color. But hopefully, the internet will help flatten the distortion that exists in terms of fundraising. But
at the very least, it creates an option, another venue for raising money.
Well, that's right. But the real issue is the role of money in our politics. We have to be, I think every citizen who cares about the future of our democracy has to be concerned about the role of money. Our elections are so expensive. What you're looking at basically is a multi-billion-dollar unregulated industry. And see, you know what you're doing? You're pulling me to talk about politics.
Oh, no. We're gonna drop the politics. I didn't want to go there because we've got a lot of other important things to talk about today. So we're going to go ahead and take our first break, but stay right where you are, because when we come back, we're going to talk about life after the Senate and how sustainability became Braun's next mountain to climb. You're listening to the Costa Report. I'm here today with Scott Caraccioli of Caraccioli Cellars, and I have a question for you, Scott. What goes into making Method Champenois bubble?
You know, it's a process that's really defined by the French government that we've taken and enacted into our wines, which really drive the quality of our sparkling project.
So this is a process that the French government defines pretty specifically, and you remain faithful to that.
Yeah, 100%. And in some places we push it a little bit.
Now, how do the bubbles translate on the palate?
You know, it really gives you that vehicle, that mousse for the character of the sparkling wine, carrying the fruit and the complexity. It's the expression of the wine. To find out more about Caraccioli wines, visit us at www.caracciolicellars.com or stop by our tasting room in downtown Carmel, California. That's Caraccioli Cellars, Caraccioli, Cellars. Come taste the difference.
No matter what business you're in, what happens in Washington can make the difference between business success or failure. That's why understanding where government is headed is so important in today's competitive business environment. But where can you find experts who know firsthand the inner workings of our nation's capital? The American Program Bureau is your leading source for speakers whose experience offer unique insights into where U.S. policy is headed. Speakers like Seth Harris, former acting U.S. Secretary of Labor, Alyssa Mastromonaco, former White House Deputy Chief of Staff, and General Carl Eikenberry, former U.S. Ambassador to Afghanistan. For your next meeting or conference, contact the American Program Bureau at apbspeakers.com or 617-614-1600. That's apbspeakers.com. The American Program Bureau, making history, one speech at a time.
Paid for by No on 45, Californians Against Higher Healthcare Costs. Major funding by Kaiser Foundation Health Plan, Inc., WellPoint, Inc., and Blue Shield of California. With a coalition of doctors, nurses, hospitals, health plans, and California employers.
Special interests already control Sacramento. Now they're pushing Prop 45 to give one Sacramento politician control over our healthcare.
One politician with control over my benefits.
One politician with control over my copays and deductibles.
One politician with control over what treatment options are covered.
One Sacramento politician
who can take millions in campaign contributions from special interests.
Who would control our health care.
One politician.
One.
Prop 45 just gives too much power to one politician.
Get the facts at noon45.org. And join doctors, nurses, and small businesses across California and vote no on 45. Stop the politician power grab.
Do you have a plan for your money? Does your money come and go like the tides? Do you just leave your finances to fate? Cash is always flowing, money is always moving, and if you don't manage it, it will move away from you. So many people actually spend more time planning their next trip to the dentist than they do something even more important like their retirement. You know what they say, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. Don't leave your financial future to fate. Take charge. Listen to Money Moves every Thursday at 7 p.m. here on KSCO AM 1080. Money Moves is dedicated to providing you tips and tools so you can manage your own money effectively. No one cares about your money more than you do. Therefore, you need the skills to manage your money. Listen to Money Moves every Thursday at 7 p.m. here on KSCO AM 1080.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and my guest today is Carol Moseley Braun. Now, after serving in the Senate, you were appointed to the position of ambassador to New Zealand and Samoa. And as I understand it, while serving in this position, you learned a lot about how diet, nutrition, and fitness are an integral part of that country's healthcare system. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, thank you. I used to call myself ambassador to paradise because between New Zealand, which is just gorgeous, and Samoa and the Cook Islands and that whole area of the South Pacific, it was just such a beautiful place, and the people were always so nice to me. And I got a chance to get around and really, again, expand my own horizons. New Zealand, being an island, pays a lot of attention to health and nutrition and prevention and wellness because they have universal health coverage. And so in as much as the government pays for everybody's health care, it's in their interest to see to it, to do what they can to keep people from getting sick in the first place. And so I found that very interesting. Being an island also, they are very attentive to what food is brought into the country, what kind of food, how their agricultural practices and the like. I had been involved with agriculture from my days. Well, actually, my family has a farm in Alabama that I would spend time on as a little girl. And then when I got to the state legislature, Illinois is a largely agricultural state. There's a joke just outside of Chicago. There's a place called Illinois. So the rest right, our state is agricultural, and so I had a lot of involvement with agriculture policy in the state legislature. Then when I got to the Senate, I was the first woman in history to be on the Senate Finance Committee. And, of course, that meant that I had a chance to get engaged with the Farm Bill and other policy issues pertaining to, agriculture policy for our country. And then on to an agricultural country like New Zealand, right? People, again, another joke, more sheep than people. It's not as bad as people make out to be, but there are more sheep than people in New Zealand still. And so between all those involvements, and then I had been involved with a group. I was, in fact, on the board of an organization that was promoting what's called biodynamic organic agriculture. It's sustainable agriculture. It is agriculture. I call it the traditional organic. It relates to how you treat the soil, how you treat the permaculture, the terroir, if you will, of the products that you're developing.
Now, how is that different from regular organic farming? For people who aren't experts at farming, how is biodynamics different?
Well, I like to say that organic is defined in the negative, whereas biodynamic is defined in the positive. That is to say, organic just means there's no junk on your food. That means there's no pesticides, no chemicals. That's what that means, defined in terms of what's not there. Mm-hmm. Biodynamic goes the next step and says this is a system of agriculture that will enhance the soil, that relies on companion planting, that relies on putting nutrients back into the soil, that uses only herbs and other natural forms of support for the crops that are being grown. And
so we have an idea in our country that clean food means responsible farming, but you're saying clean food doesn't mean responsible farming unless you've done it in using biodynamic techniques.
Well, I think we have to make the first step to clean food, which is getting the junk out. I mean, I really do. I'm a great supporter of agriculture, of organic agriculture, because it's such an important fundamental point, because so much of our food is polluted in ways, and frankly in ways that folks don't want to even talk about. I mean, right now in Colorado, you have a ballot initiative about genetic modification, GMOs. Mm-hmm. Well, ask yourself, who doesn't want to let you know what's in your food? I mean, put aside whether you think genetic modification is a good or bad idea. The point that a consumer, someone who's going to eat or drink something, wouldn't know that what they're consuming has been genetically modified, just seems to me to be an indefensible point. And yet, if you look at our food supply, there are many instances in which people are consuming products that they don't know what went into the production of those products, and some of the things that have gone into and continue to go into those products does actual harm to their bodies. So I think that moving to the organic standard first and being concerned about not having, again, junk on the food and in production, that's the first step. And then I think the next step beyond that is focusing in on what are you doing about the permaculture? What are you doing about the land? Are you coming with agricultural processes that will enhance the quality of the soil as opposed to take away from it? And that's what biodynamic or agriculture.
Now, you had made plans to restore your family farm, is that right?
I did. I had wanted to. I'd wanted to restore the farm. It hasn't been farmed in a generation since I was little, and so I wanted to go back there. And I'd actually gotten started with it when I came back to this country from New Zealand, but 9/11 got in the way, and my whole family is here in Chicago, and I just couldn't keep making the commute from Alabama and Georgia to Illinois on a weekly basis, and so I decided I'd resettle here in Chicago, and then after thinking about it, I decided to start my little company, my Biodynamic Organics, but we do some regular organic products, and that's how this company, how Ambassador Organics got started.
Now, what kinds of products are biodynamic today?
Oh, lots. We have their biodynamic teas. Well, outside of this country, tea doesn't grow here in the United States, and neither does coffee. But we have biodynamic teas, biodynamic coffee, biodynamic vegetables of every sort. So all the different produce you can find in biodynamic form, if the grower, is inclined to label it as such. There's wheat. I mean, there's flours that you can get in terms of flour and meal and olive oil, of course. So really, milk. I mean, you go right across the board, and every product that you can think of that you can find in organic form, you can find in biodynamic form.
And how can you find out if it's done biodynamically? Well,
some people are beginning. That's a real industry. My son would call it mishkadoodle. Okay, so
I like that word.
But the fact is that there are not enough people who know what biodynamic is, and then there's precious little labeling of biodynamic. There's a group that certifies the biodynamics, and they're promoting more advertising, if you will, of the biodynamic source of our organic product, because they have to, by definition, be organic. I mean, you can't have biodynamic without it being organic.
Right, but we need some kind of label like Intel inside, Well, I mean, some easy way to identify, right?
Yes, the label is Demeter, Demeter, like the goddess of harvest. But Demeter is the label for biodynamic certified products.
Okay, well, we'll start looking for that label now, and I hope it shows up in more places. Now, we have to take another break. We'll be right back with more from Carol Moseley Braun. You're listening to the Costa Report. The holiday season is just around the corner, and I want to share one of my favorite tips for being able to avoid that last-minute dash to buy something that screams, "I didn't put much thought into this." Now imagine a different scenario this year. Imagine the surprise on your loved one's face when they open the first page of the Watchman's Rattle and see a custom dedication in their name by the author. The best part is it's so easy. Just go to RebeccaCosta.com, do it right now, and click on the book cover, and presto, in less than 3 minutes you can request the inscription you want. So do it now. Go to RebeccaCosta.com, and this year, give an affordable, thoughtful gift that says, "This is for you and only you." That's RebeccaCosta.com.
There are 700,000 horses in California, and I'm wondering how they get around. Hello, Michael Olson here, RV Service Center, 2525 Mission, way up at the top of Santa Cruz with Rena Mills, the owner. Rena, how do they get around?
They all get around in horse trailers. And yes, we service horse trailers here at RV Service Center. We do axles, we do leak repair, we do wiring, brake, we do insurance. We do it all. The number one neglect I see most often, Michael, are the axles. Axles need to be serviced every 5,000 miles or 2 years, and that keeps you rolling along smoothly and getting to your destination.
What happens if you don't service the axles?
You know those people you see alongside of the road waiting for AAA? That's what happens when you don't service the axles. We offer 20% discount to any members of the Santa Cruz Horsemen's Association. So if you've got a horse trailer, bring it on down to RV Service Center.
RV Service Center, way up at the top of Santa Cruz, 2525 Mission, right off Highway 1. Can't miss it.
RV Service Center has been locally owned and operated since 1976.
Hi, registered pharmacist Ben Fuchs here. I've been studying healthy bodies for 35 years, and what I've got to tell you may shock and surprise you, but if you listen up, it may change your life. Pharmacy students are taught that the ubiquitous RX prescription symbol refers to the Latin designation to take. But as it turns out, there's another more mysterious and occult tradition associated with the well-known sigil that derives from the religion of ancient Egypt. The Egyptians regarded Horus as the father of medicine. Horus, it is said, was the son of two primary Egyptian deities, Osiris and Isis. He was also the avenger of his father's death at the hands of Osiris's brother, the wicked uncle Set, with whom he did battle, losing his left eye in the fight. Thoth, the patron deity of physicians and scientists, magically healed the eye and gave it back to Horus, who then used it as a remedy to restore his father Osiris to the world of the living. Thus began the legend of the Eye of Horus, which initially referenced Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. Over time, it was linked to the sun, and from there was a short leap to connecting the eye to light and sight, and later it became a powerful marker representing healing and rebirth. Egyptians referred to the eye with the term Wejat, meaning whole or health, and they associated the symbol with protection, prosperity, and abundance. And of course, it shows up in modern culture in Freemasonry's all-seeing eye. So what's this got to do with pharmacy? Well, as it turns out, the Eye of Horus bears an interesting resemblance to the Latin designation RX. While pharmacy students learn that it's a mere directive to the patient, there are those who believe it's actually an acknowledgement of the historical and occult foundations of the ancient practice of pharmacy. Pharmacist Ben here, urging you to go to kscohealth.com to order Beyond Tangy Tangerine, the Healthy Start Pack, and other nutritional supplements that I personally use and recommend. You can purchase these premium quality products at wholesale prices online at kscohealth.com. That's kscohealth.com. I'm the pharmacist that believes that staying healthy and strong is not only about medicine, it's about giving your body the raw materials it needs to do its work. Go to kscohealth.com. Make sure you check out the cool videos too at kscohealth.com. That's kscohealth.com.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and if you're just joining us, my guest today is Carol Moseley Braun. And before the break, you were giving the labeling for biodynamically grown products, which is it Demeter?
Demeter.
Demeter, as in the god of harvest.
That's right, of the goddess of harvest.
The goddess of harvest, Demeter. So hopefully we'll be looking for those labels. Now, in New Zealand, the government is quite aggressive when it comes to legislating requirements for clean food and also sustainable farming. So do we need more government leadership in these areas, or is this a case where consumer demand will naturally solve the problem?
Well, I'll tell you something. It's both, and finding balance is always a challenge. But in the first instance, the consumer demand really is driving the process and driving the growth in the organic sector. And the more people know about what's in their food, the more people connect what they eat with their own physical health, the more this sector will grow, in my opinion. I think it's inevitable. To use another word, I think it's ineluctable. It can't be avoided because people, there's so much disease and there's so much suffering that is needless because of junk that's in our food supply. So I think that there's going to be a natural evolution on the one hand. On the other, having standards is vitally important. And, for example, we now have a national organic program that's been federally legislated. There's something called the National Organic Standards Board. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting how much that has become a battleground for this little agency nobody ever heard of, right? A battleground for the future of agriculture. Whether or not we continue down the path of genetic modification and more chemicals on the food supply and, then give somebody some medication to fix something that their food caused, we can either continue down that path or move in the direction of cleaner food, better nutrition. But the National Organic Standards Board is where the fight is taking place because there are some efforts and some very, very deep pockets behind, again, allowing for genetic modification, allowing for additives in processing, you may have heard the story about the yoga mat, yoga mat fibers that were in a bread product recently. Happily, that company has taken the bread off the market, but they had yoga mat fabrics in it. So food has become a real battleground, frankly, because there's billions of dollars involved, and the conventional agriculture sector has a lot at stake in keeping people from knowing what's in their food. And I think that again, consumers are beginning to demand to know what's in their food, what goes into processing it. But sometimes their voices get drowned out. I mean, there was a situation in which right now, I think I mentioned the ballot initiative in Colorado on genetic modification. The Citizens Initiative has been outspent by almost a factor of 40 to 1.
Wow.
Citizens
That's 40 to 1.
40 to 1. $1 million for the people who want you to know whether or not your food has been genetically modified, and $40 million on the other side of people who just as soon not have labeling and have you not know what it is that you're eating. I mean, it's just so when you ask is it government or the private or the consumer, I come down on the side of saying it's both, and we have to engage where we can to not only talk to our friends and neighbors and be engaged, just search out the truth for yourself. If you know that your children are eating Zuzus and Wham Whams and can't, don't have the energy to go out and do anything but play video games, you're not helping them. So you got to take some personal responsibility for what it is that you're providing for your children, what it is you're eating, and what you buy at the store. And I think, again,
now, what do you say to folks who worry that the price of food will go up if we move to sustainable methods and clean foods? Today, on average, organically grown foods cost more. So does this move to organics hurt the poorest in the country?
Well, I got to tell you, that is a real concern. And one of the things I learned from being in government all these years is that, costs are kind of like a balloon that you punch in one place and the air just moves to somewhere else. So the fact is that, yes, it is a fact that organic products are right now generally more expensive. That is going to change, again, organically over time as more acres are put into organic production, as consumer demand for organic products grows, as there's more sales. The whole economy is a scale. Those prices will come down in that way over time. But the fact is that right now, we taxpayers, we are paying for the addition of pollutants on our food supply. We pay not only through the Farm Bill, but we pay for the price supports that actually make it more profitable for companies to put chemicals on their crops. There's a whole set of relationships, economic relationships, that taxpayers are supporting that in turn support bad health, which then in turn supports people having to rely more on, a healthcare industry that comes to their aid with a pill, again, for something, in many instances, for things that could have been, if not prevented, then ameliorated on the front end by prevention.
Yeah, I always thought it was funny when the telephone company made me pay not to print my name in the telephone book back when we had telephone books. And I always thought it was weird that I had to pay more money when you didn't have to pay to put the pesticides on my food. I thought those should be savings for me, but all those things seem to be backwards, don't they?
Well, but that's what you ask the question about government. That's where the role of government comes in. I mean, the fact is, it shouldn't. Logic tells you that if you don't put chemicals on a tomato, that tomato should be cheaper than the one you put chemicals on, right?
Well, I thought not having my name in the phone book saved them a little ink.
It should.
But no, we kind of live in a backwards world. I have to pay to have you not spend money. I don't completely understand it. You would think that organic food might be cheaper, but you do point out, and I've researched a lot of the presentations that you've made on biodynamic farming, and one of the things that you point out is the more consumer demand there is, the prices will come down. That's
exactly right. And that really is that's the place where every citizen, every person who eats is empowered, because every person makes a decision with every forkful of whatever it is, whether or not you're going to choose the polluted product or one that's clean, or you choose the clean food. And that's a decision that nobody can make you eat a genetically modified tomato if you know that it's genetically modified in the first place, and if you choose not to put pollutants or toxins in your body. I mean, that's a matter of individual choice. And so the more we talk about this and let people know that they have the power to change the whole game, they can change the way the Farm Bill works. I mean, we've had to fight to hold on to the organic program, but quite frankly, one of the issues, for example, in putting more acreage into organic production is the fact that the soil has to be clean. That is to say, the soil has to be clean and free of pesticides for 3 years before an organic certification can be given.
Yes.
So for many farmers, that's very difficult to do. You know, what do you just take your land out of production for that long a period of time? And so the transition from conventional farming with chemicals to organic farming without has costs associated with it. And the more the demand we have, the more on the consumer demand on the one hand, but the more government can step up and say, okay, we're going to help the organic farmer as much as we help the farmer who's putting, all these chemicals on his crops, his product. If we can push things in that direction, I think we'll be able to increase the organic supply and at the same time bring the prices down.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree with you, and I think, as you point out, one of the most exciting developments is hearing that companies like Walmart are talking about democratizing sustainability by making green products more affordable and more available to a wider cross-section of society. Now, we have to take our final break, but stay right where you are. We'll be back to talk about farming and healthcare reform. You're listening to the Costa Report.
Do you love creating salads as much as you enjoy eating them? Hi, I'm Amy Tobin, cookbook author and culinary expert. Dole inspires fresh and wholesome dishes for any meal with their wide selection of salad blends and all-natural salad kits. From the mild and tender texture of sweet butter lettuce to the crunch of classic romaine sprinkled with colorful shredded carrots and red cabbage, Dole has over 30 salad blends to satisfy every palate. If you're looking for the ultimate in convenience, try Dole's unique salad kit combinations that include farm-fresh lettuces and vegetables, mouth-watering all-natural toppings, and specially made dressings. It's all you need to make a distinctively delicious salad. The possibilities are endless. Visit www.dolesalads.com for recipes and other ideas to feed your culinary imagination.
As a scientist who works hard to stay on top of current events and trends, I know how easy it is to get caught up in the details of a story and lose sight of the big picture. What is happening to society as a whole? Where are we headed? Why does it feel as if there's greater instability, unrest, and danger in the world? The truth is, very few of us have time to contemplate these questions. And if we're waiting for our leaders or the media to paint a clear picture, well, we may be in for a long wait. That's why I'm urging you to grab a copy of The Watchman's Rattle. Do it now. Go to RebeccaCosta.com. Find out why scientists, government leaders, and the heads of the largest corporations in America are waking up to a newly uncovered pattern of human behavior. That's The Watchman's Rattle at RebeccaCosta.com, a bestseller in 26 countries and a book that Richard Branson, Donald Trump, and experts everywhere are calling a must-read. That's The Watchman's Rattle, available at bookstores everywhere and online at RebeccaCosta.com.
Look before you leap.
Good advice for deciding what to do about Proposition 46.
Written and paid for by the trial lawyers to make millions for themselves.
Prop 46 is a risk Californians literally cannot afford. That's the warning from state budget experts who've carefully studied Prop 46.
The experts conclude Prop 46 would increase state and local government health care costs by hundreds of millions of dollars annually.
In fact, Prop 46 will increase our total health care costs by billions of dollars in just a few years.
That's up to $1,000 more for a family of 4 every year.
And taxpayers like us will be on the hook for it.
The San Francisco Chronicle says Prop 46 overreached in a decidedly cynical way.
In fact, every major newspaper in California opposes it.
Those are the costs. Those are the risks.
And why to vote no on Prop 46?
Paid for by No on 46, patients, providers, and healthcare insurers to contain health costs, with major funding from the Cooperative American Physicians IE Committee and the Doctors Company.
When the going gets tough, the tough get going to North Bay Ford in Santa Cruz for a built Ford tough truck. Hello, I'm Bobby Robinson. It's Ford Truck Month here at North Bay Ford, our locally owned dealership with friendly, small-town values. And Truck Month means great deals for you on built Ford tough trucks. Select one of our 10 F-150 models at North Bay Ford.
For hauling a load of lumber to the job, the kids out camping, or the groceries home from the store, nothing beats a Ford F-150 XL or STX with estimated EPA mileage of 17 in town and 23 on the highway. Available in regular, super, and super crew cabs.
When you need a tough truck for tough jobs, you'll find it during Truck Month here at North Bay Ford. They are big, beautiful, and built Ford tough. So come on down and get behind the wheel at locally owned North Bay Ford, 1999 SoCal Avenue, Santa Cruz, or on the web at northbayford.com.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and my guest today is former Senator Carol Moseley Braun. Now, there's been a lot of talk about health care reform, but so far, all the focus this first year has been on enrollment and getting people who had no insurance coverage to get them covered. We haven't been able to tackle reducing costs in any way. So when it comes to taking on the real source of many illnesses, which is what we put inside our bodies and also our lifestyle, it feels like we're light years away from getting around to that. And some people feel that that's a matter of education at the earliest possible age, something schools in collaboration with parents have to take on. But others want government intervention, such as the recent case where one state tried to limit the size of soda which could be sold. And they argue that the government's going to end up footing the bill on the back end in terms of health care, so it should have some say on the front end. Do you have any thoughts about that link between nutrition and fitness and health care reform?
I'm sorry, I just choked just a second ago. You're right. I do have lots of thoughts, but let me just say this. It's just like everything else. It's a matter of finding, and this is what government is supposed to do, finding the balance, finding the happy medium. The fact of the matter is that we don't need to go to a nanny state in order to have healthier people and have to improve the quality of life for people and in prevention and wellness. We don't, we can do that. Education is one thing, but also the way our healthcare system works.
But we don't seem to be doing much on the prevention side, are we? Are we doing what we should be doing to keep people from developing these illnesses when we in fact know the causes?
Well, you know what? I think on the one hand, a little good news, right? Mm-hmm. A little good news on this front is think about the difference in the leaps that have been made in regard to cigarette smoking. I mean, we have at least in my lifetime, there's been a tremendous, almost a cultural change in terms of people smoking cigarettes and the impact of all the different types of lung and heart disease that come from that. So we have had some victories.
But, we're so dysfunctional. We drop cigarettes and we move on to fast food.
Well,
when you and I were kids, it was too expensive to go down and have, to buy a burger at a joint. I mean, I my parents, that was a special treat.
It was unheard of.
It was unheard of, but now we drop cigarettes and we move on to soda and fast food. Well, we just seem to just not get it right.
My son, again, back to my wise son, who's very funny, who says every generation gets to make the same mistakes. Okay, so
hey, wait, we were trying to keep this positive. Oh, I hope we're not on that treadmill. But I have to say, we've been talking about some important issues: health care, nutrition, sustainable farming, doing what's right for the planet, clean foods. And these things affect us not only socially, but economically as well. But to be real honest with you, doesn't the real battle come down to taste? I mean, there is no way anyone's going to convince me that a veggie burger tastes as good as a Cinnabon. Or yogurt is the same as ice cream. I'm sorry. I've been down that road. It's not the same.
Except that tastes are largely cultural as well. If you think about it, I used to give just by way of reference, there was something the Roman Empire had claimed a dish called garum. It was actually a condiment, and garum went on just about everything. It was a fish-based sauce that was very popular throughout the known world at that point because of the Roman Empire, the influence of the Roman Empire. Well, if you ask somebody for some garum today, they will look at you like you've lost their mind. When the Roman Empire fell, basically that food that was so vitally important went away. Now, there's some vestiges of it, but it basically is gone. And the same thing, maybe one day people will look back and say, that genetically modified, calorie-laden beef burger, right, is the equivalent of garum. But it's a matter of taste. It's a matter of consumer taste. And so I guess it is a matter of consumer taste. I agree with you completely. But I'm a biologist by training. I know that a Cinnabon has no value to my body and is full of poison. And I should not eat a Cinnabon ever again the rest of my life. But it's yummy because your taste buds tell you.
If I even walk through a mall and smell one, I have to have one. and there's no excuse for me, So what I want the folks that develop healthy foods to make something that will trick me and think I'm eating a Cinnabon, but not if they have to make a paragraph go with it. Not if they have to talk to me while I'm eating it to convince me. Do you know what I mean?
Our products, Ambassador Organics focuses primarily on beverages, and so we've got coffees and teas and the like. Well, one of our products is a hibiscus tea that is just gorgeous, and people who come from south of the border know about hibiscus teas. People who come from the deep south know about hibiscus tea, but really in places like the Midwest, it's fairly unknown. Well, the funniest thing is to stand at one of our demos when we're serving hibiscus tea. The number of kids who come up and say, "Oh, Mommy, can I have some Kool-Aid?" And when they taste it, say, "Oh, but it doesn't have any sugar in
it." Kids, that would be me. That would be me complaining about that. Well, we are almost out of time, but I have to ask you, where can listeners today go to learn more about your work in biodynamic farming?
Well, our website is ambassadororganics.com. Organics is ambassadororganics.com. And so that's about the best place to go would be to our website.
All right, so I have one more question for you, and I don't want you to be mad at me. Now that you've fully recovered from politics, any plans to wade back in?
No.
I didn't think so. You sound too happy.
Well,
I'm
having
imagine.
A great time. I got to tell you, a quick story as that we wrap up. I was in Antarctica as ambassador to New Zealand. I actually saw with my own eyes a glacier crack open and fall into the sea. If we don't do something in our time about sustainability, we won't have a planet to turn over to the next generation and the next generation. And that's not something I'm prepared to stand by and watch happen on my watch, my little time on this planet. So we all have an opportunity and an obligation, I think, to engage for sustainability, for nutrition, for all these things that help make life better for the people who are going to come after us.
Well, I agree with you there. It's hard for me to look my kids in the face and know what we're leaving behind. So I think if just all the mothers got together, we might be able to do something about that. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we've got left. But before we say goodbye, I want to thank you for your service to our country, and thank you for making time to be with us today, Ms. Braun. Thank you.
Well, thank you for a delightful interview. I've enjoyed this.
And you come back anytime. We'd love to have you. If your station is leaving us after this first hour and you have a question or a comment to make about our interview with Carol Moseley Braun today, you can email me at RebeccaCosta.com or drop me a note on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. With all the talk about health care reform, we seem to be focused on the enrollment side of the issue, and there hasn't been much impact on the rising costs of health care and, more importantly, the causes of many of our illnesses, which science has now proven come from poor diets and lifestyles. But just how much should the government get involved? Most of us don't want the government to decide what we can and should eat. But what do we do if we keep making bad choices and the government has to eventually foot our hospital bills? It's a complicated issue and one we continue to struggle with in this country. So send me your comments at RebeccaCosta.com. I'd like to know how you see it. And if you missed the full interview with Ms. Braun or any of our other previous guests, remember that you can download previous episodes of the Costa Report from our website, Apple iTunes, Podbean, and our YouTube channel. We keep programs up on our website for 3 and 4 years. They're all posted at RebeccaCosta.com. That's easy to remember. It's myname.com. And while you're at the website, grab your autographed copy of The Watchman's Rattle. Just click on the cover of the book, and it'll take you right over to a page where you can order it. And if you're getting ready to purchase your holiday gifts and looking for a customized and affordable gift, order The Watchman's Rattle because we're inscribing the first page with a custom dedication to your loved one at no additional cost. Now, my guest next week, you're going to want to pencil this in, is the former governor of New Jersey and head of the Environmental Protection Agency, Christine Todd Whitman, who says the EPA has the power to affect something as daunting as climate change. Is she right? Find out next week on the only news program that puts policy ahead of politics. Now stay tuned for a second hour of Straight Talk Radio. You're listening to the Costa Report.